On the night Kendrick Lamar returned to Australian festival stages after years of absence, the air in Ballarat felt different. Even before the gates opened, even before the first bass line hit the ground soaked by hours of rain, there was a quiet sense of anticipation that didn't belong to any other artist on the lineup. It belonged to him. Kendrick was the gravity of Spilt 2025. His name alone created the pull, the energy, the sold-out rush, and the massive wave of fans willing to stand through a weather storm that would have sent any other festival crowd running for shelter. Welcome to celebrity rap life, where the red carpets never roll up and the spotlight never fades. The rewards are legendary. Because in celebrity rap life, every downfall can become a comeback, and every headline tells a deeper story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second of what's coming next. This was not just another concert. This was the return of one of the greatest rappers of his generation to a country that had been waiting patiently, sometimes impatiently, ever since he stepped away from festival circuits and retreated into the selective, intentional way he now approaches live performances. Kendrick Lamar had become rare, and in music, rarity multiplies value. Every appearance becomes an event. Every set becomes a cultural timestamp. Every stage he steps on becomes a place people talk about years later. So when Spilt announced in late 2024 that Kendrick Lamar would headline its resurrection, Australia felt a jolt. A shockwave. A moment that reminded everyone of why music festivals once felt like cultural holidays instead of logistical headaches. Kendrick was the headline of headlines. The name that brought the festival back from the edge of the grave. The moment that made fans believe the scene wasn't dead yet. And so as the storm poured over Victoria Park, turning the ground into rivers of mud, the crowd didn't leave. They tightened their ponchos. They pushed forward. They endured it all because at the end of the night, Kendrick Lamar would step on stage. And for many, that alone was worth the struggle. But Spilt 2025 was a night of extremes. Extremes in weather. Extremes in expectation. Extremes in performance. So before Kendrick took the stage, an unexpected shift occurred. A moment where the storm, the lights, and the atmosphere became the backdrop for something that would dominate the conversation. Doekiai delivered a stunning, explosive, visually charged performance that carved itself into the memory of anyone standing in that soaked crowd. Still, even with her impact, the story of this night belongs majorly to Kendrick Lamar. His presence transformed the chaos into meaning. His mastery turned the rain into a cinematic filter. His restraint created a contrast so sharp that it reminded everyone why he stands as a giant in hip-hop. But to understand his impact on this night, you have to understand everything that led up to it. Spilt wasn't supposed to exist in 2025. The Australian festival scene had cracked under pressure. Rising costs. Weather unpredictability. Insurance nightmares. Declining sponsorships. Promoters pulling out. Fans pulling back. The domino effect swallowed some of the country's most beloved events, and for a while, it felt like festivals were becoming relics of a pre-pandemic world. So when Spilt announced its return, many doubted it. Some called it a gamble. Others called it reckless. But when the lineup dropped, the doubt evaporated. Kendrick Lamar. Schoolboy Q. Dominic Fike. Genesis Owusu. Doekiai. The return of the festival wasn't cautious. It was loud. It was confident. It was a declaration. Tickets vanished. Fans poured into Ballarat from Melbourne, Adelaide, regional towns, university dorms, and long train routes. Even the rain couldn't slow the migration. Spilt 2025 became a pilgrimage. Not for survival. For revival. For the chance to witness an artist who rarely appears, rarely tours, and rarely opens himself to festival chaos anymore. Kendrick Lamar wasn't performing because he needed to. He was performing because he chose to. That alone made the night feel sacred to thousands standing ankle-deep in mud. The early acts delivered their own fire. Rebecca Black brought attitude and surprise. The Ryans offered melody and charm. Somber injected energy. The festival was alive, breathing through the storm. Then came Schoolboy Q, a longtime collaborator, friend, and TDE brother whose presence alone added a sense of reunion. He grinned as soon as he stepped out, like a man who had missed this. His set was nostalgia and freshness blended into one. Hands in the air. Voices echoing. Rain be damned. People forgot the cold. They forgot the mud. They lost themselves in his flow, his charisma, his confidence. Q reminded the entire field what hip-hop energy feels like when delivered by someone who treats the stage as home. He primed them. He raised the temperature. He cracked open the atmosphere for Kendrick's eventual arrival. But Dominic Fike was the one who softened the storm for a moment. His set was warmth. His voice, gentle but sure, wrapped around the festival like a blanket. The sun dipped behind the trees. Lights reflected on wet branches. Thousands sang his melodies into the night sky. For a moment, Ballarat felt peaceful. Human. United. When he paused mid-set and joked that he was just the guy saying hi before Kendrick came and did his thing, the roar that followed was overwhelming. People were here for Kendrick. They weren't shy about it. They weren't quiet. They were waiting. But before Kendrick appeared, Doekiai walked out and delivered one of the most explosive sets of the entire festival year. Her world-building, her sharp lighting design, her green and black swamp aesthetic, her dancers, her vocals, her ferocity all collided into a performance that felt larger than the storm itself. Her set grew louder online by the hour after the festival ended. Clips spread. Fans argued. Memes appeared. People claimed she stole the show. Yet even as the conversation amplified, one truth remained deeper and quieter. Spilt Milk 2025 had a heart, a center of gravity, a core figure, and it was Kendrick Lamar. His presence overshadowed everything. His legend shaped the night. His return gave the festival its meaning. And when he finally stepped on stage, the entire field erupted with a force that made the hours of rain feel like preparation for something sacred. The opening notes of whacked-out murals cut through the air. No intro video. No pyrotechnics. No elaborate digital backdrops. Kendrick chose minimalism. He chose focus. He chose clarity. His voice hit the air sharp and deliberate, and the crowd tightened around every word. Kendrick Lamar wasn't battling the spectacle before him. He wasn't competing with the flash, the lights, the thunderous stampede of performances that came before him. He moved as someone who had nothing to prove. Someone whose artistry spoke louder in quiet moments than most artists could ever speak with fireworks. His presence was calm, controlled, almost meditative. Even the rain seemed to slow when he lifted the mic. His flow was razor-precise. Each lyric fell clean through the open air, unaffected by the storm swirling around the edges of the stage. He performed as if the rain was part of the set design, as if the mud was intentional. As if this exact version of Spilt Milk was the version he wanted. Kendrick thrives in environments that feel raw. Environments where nothing is polished. Nights where nature interferes and forces honesty onto the stage. That honesty defined his entire performance. He didn't try to match the explosive spectacle earlier in the night. He didn't need dancers. He didn't need towering screens. He relied on the power of his voice, his breath control, the clarity of his storytelling, and the emotion hiding between each bar. The stage lights painted his face in shifting shadows. The rain slid across his jacket. He barely moved, but every gesture he made drew the crowd in tighter. Kendrick understands something very few artists truly master. Silence can be louder than sound. Stillness can be more commanding than chaos. A whisper can overshadow a scream. Throughout the set, fans stood mesmerized. Some rapped every lyric perfectly. Others simply watched, taking in the subtlety, the discipline, the intention. Kendrick's artistry created an atmosphere many weren't expecting. A moment that wasn't explosive but deeply immersive. His voice bounced off the wet ground and climbed into the fog hovering above the park. Intermittent cheers rose and fell. People shouted his name. But mostly, the audience listened. They were witnessing a master at work, someone performing not to impress but to express. Someone whose greatness rests not in spectacle but in craftsmanship. Kendrick Lamar didn't need the storm to make his set memorable. But the storm made it unforgettable. Each time the rain thickened, Kendrick tightened his flow. Each time lightning flashed in the distance, the crowd gasped, and Kendrick continued unfazed. It felt almost symbolic. Like nature itself had joined the performance without his permission, and Kendrick simply absorbed it into the moment. Even after Doekiai's firestorm of a performance, Kendrick's presence reclaimed the night with quiet dominance. He didn't overshadow her. He didn't need to. He simply stood in his truth, and the weight of his artistry naturally commanded the field. That is the power of a legend. He closed his set with subtlety instead of spectacle, leaving the stage not with a dramatic goodbye but with the same intention he carried throughout the night. Purpose over performance. Meaning over noise. Art over theatrics. And when he walked off, the field remained frozen for a moment before applause broke through. It wasn't the loudest cheer of the night, but it was the deepest. It came from a place of reverence, respect, gratitude. People knew they had witnessed something rare. Something that would not be repeated on a tour cycle or a live stream. Something that could only exist in that muddy field on that storm-soaked night. As fans trudged through the mud toward the exits, exhausted and soaking, many spoke about Doekiai's wildfire moment. But even in those conversations, Kendrick's presence lingered beneath every remark. He was the center, the anchor, the legend that shaped the gravity of the night. Spilt Milk 2025 became a story of contrast. A rising star exploding into her moment. A veteran icon delivering mastery with restraint. A festival resurrecting itself through chaos. And a storm that forced everyone to see beauty in imperfection. And through it all, Kendrick Lamar stood as the figure who made the night matter. His return created the anticipation. His presence elevated the energy. His performance grounded the chaos. And even when another artist's moment caught fire, Kendrick's shadow stretched across the festival with a quiet, undeniable force. Because some artists perform. Some artists entertain. Some artists surprise. But Kendrick Lamar does something far rarer. He defines the moment, simply by showing up. This story is far from over, and the truth is still unfolding. I want to hear what you think. Drop your take in the comments. And if you don't want to miss the next twist, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second of what's coming next.